everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today I will teach you some useful phrasal verbs with the word put to help your English sound more. Before we start, remember that many phrasal verbs can have multiple meanings depending on the context, but don't worry, I'll focus on the most commonly used meanings for each one. I'll explain each phrasal verb clearly with practical examples you can use right away. Let's get started. Our first phrasal verb is put on, and it has two meanings. The first meaning is wearing clothes, accessories, or makeup. This is one of the most basic and useful phrasal verbs you'll use every day when talking about getting dressed. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, I need to put on my jacket because it's cold. Here, put on means to wear or dress yourself in the jacket. Second example is, she puts on makeup every morning before work. Here, put on means to apply makeup to her face. Third example is, don't forget to put on your seatbelt when you get in the car. Here, put on means to fasten or secure the seatbelt around yourself. And the fourth example, he put on his best suit for the job interview. Here, put on means to dress himself in or wear the suit. Now let's use the same phrasal verb in a different situation to start playing something like music, TV, or entertainment. This meaning is very common in daily conversations about media and entertainment. Here are several examples. First example is, can you put on some music while we cook? Here, put on means to start playing or turn on the music. Second example is, let's put on a movie after dinner. Here, put on means to start playing or begin watching the movie. Third example is, she put on the news to check the weather forecast. Here, put on means to turn on or start watching the news program. And the fourth example, the kids want to put on their favorite cartoon. Here, put on means to start playing or begin watching their cartoon show. Our second phrasal verb is put off, which means to postpone or delay something until later. This phrase is incredibly useful when talking about schedules and time management. I'll give you multiple practical examples to help you understand better. First example is, I have to put off the meeting until next week. Here, put off means to postpone or reschedule the meeting to a later time. Second example is, don't put off your homework until the last minute. Here, put off means to delay or postpone doing your homework. Third example is, the bad weather put off our outdoor plans. Here, put off means the weather caused our plans to be postponed or delayed. And the fourth example, she decided to put off buying a new car until she saves more money. Here, put off means to delay or postpone the purchase until later. Our third phrasal verb is put up, and it has three meanings. The first meaning is to tolerate or endure something unpleasant. This is very useful for expressing when you're dealing with difficult situations. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, I can't put up with this noise anymore. Here, put up with means to tolerate or endure the annoying noise, but the speaker has reached their limit. Second example is, how do you put up with such rude customers? Here, put up with means to tolerate or endure dealing with impolite customers. And the third example, she won't put up with being treated unfairly. Here, put up with means she refuses to tolerate or accept unfair treatment. Now let's use the same phrasal verb in a different situation to provide accommodation or housing for someone temporarily. This is common when talking about guests and hospitality. Here are some examples. First example is, my friend can put me up for the weekend. Here, put up means to provide accommodation or let someone stay at their place temporarily. Second example is, the hotel can put up 50 guests comfortably. Here, put up means to accommodate or house 50 guests at the same time. And the third example, can your parents put us up during our visit to the city? Here, put up means to provide temporary accommodation or let us stay at their house. Now, let's use the same phrasal verb in yet another situation, to install, mount, or assemble something. This is very useful for talking about construction, decoration, and assembly tasks. Let me show you examples. First example is, we need to put up a new shelf in the kitchen. Here, put up means to install or mount the shelf on the wall. Second example is, they're going to put up Christmas decorations next week. Here, put up means to install or hang the decorations around the house. Third example is, the workers will put up the tent for the outdoor event. Here, put up means to assemble or set up the tent structure. And the fourth example, let's put up some pictures to make the room more welcoming. Here, put up means to hang or mount the pictures on the walls. Our fourth phrasal verb is put down, and it has three meanings. The first meaning is to place something on a surface. This is one of the most basic and literal uses you'll encounter daily. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, please put down that heavy box carefully. Here, put down means to place or set the box onto a surface gently. Second example is, I put down my keys on the kitchen table. Here, put down means to place or set the keys onto the table surface. Third example is, the waiter put down our drinks and took our order. Here, put down means the waiter placed or set the drinks onto our table. And the fourth example, she put down her shopping bags and took a break. Here, put down means she placed or set her bags onto the ground or a surface. Now let's use the same phrasal verb in a different situation, to criticize or insult someone. This is important to recognize as it describes negative behavior toward others. Let me give you examples. First example is, it's not nice to put people down in front of others. Here, put down means to criticize, insult, or make someone feel bad about themselves publicly. Second example is, stop putting yourself down, you're very talented. Here, put down means to criticize or speak negatively about yourself. And the third example, he always puts down his coworkers to make himself look better. Here, put down means he criticizes or insults his coworkers to boost his own image. Now let's use the same phrasal verb in yet another situation, to stop an activity or set something aside. This is useful for talking about ending one task to focus on another. Here are examples. First example is, I put down my phone and focused on the conversation. Here, put down means to stop using or set aside the phone to pay attention to something else. Second example is, she put down her pen and looked up at the teacher. Here, put down means she stopped writing and set aside her pen to listen. Third example is, he put down the video game controller and went to bed. Here, put down means he stopped playing and set aside the controller to go sleep. And the fourth example, please put down what you're doing and listen carefully. Here, put down means to stop your current activity and set aside whatever you're working on. Our fifth phrasal verb is put away, and it has two meanings. The first meaning is to store something in its proper place. This is essential for talking about organization and tidying up. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, please put away your toys when you're finished playing. Here, put away means to store or place the toys in their designated location. Second example is, I need to put away the groceries before they spoil. Here, put away means to store the groceries in the refrigerator, pantry, or cupboards. Third example is, she put away her winter clothes until next year. Here, put away means to store the clothes in a closet, drawer, or storage area. And the fourth example, don't forget to put away your tools after the project. Here, put away means to store or place the tools back in their proper location. Now let's use the same phrasal verb in a different situation, to save money for the future. This is crucial for discussing financial planning and saving habits. Here are examples. First example is, I try to put away some money every month for emergencies. Here, put away means to save or set aside money for future use. Second example is, they put away money for their children's college education. Here, put away means to save or reserve money for a specific future purpose. Third example is, she puts away 10% of her salary automatically. Here, put away means to save or allocate a portion of her income. And the fourth example, we should put away more money for our retirement. Here, put away means to save or set aside money for when we stop working. Our sixth phrasal verb is put out, and it has three meanings. The first meaning is to extinguish something like a fire or flame. This is important for safety situations and fire-related contexts. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, the firefighters quickly put out the house fire. Here, put out means to extinguish or stop the fire from burning. Second example is, remember to put out your cigarette before entering the building. Here, put out means to extinguish or completely stop the cigarette from burning. Third example is, we used water to put out the campfire before leaving. Here, put out means to extinguish or safely stop the fire. And the fourth example, please put out all candles before going to bed for safety. Here, put out means to extinguish or blow out the candles to prevent fire hazards. Now let's use the same phrasal verb in a different situation, to cause inconvenience to someone. This is useful for polite conversation when asking for help or favors. Here are examples. First example is, I don't want to put you out, but could you help me move? Here, put out means to cause inconvenience or trouble for someone. Second example is, would it put you out if I stayed an extra night? Here, put out means to cause inconvenience or create difficulties for someone. And the third example, I hope watching my dog won't put you out too much. Here, put out means to cause trouble or create an inconvenience for someone. Now let's use the same phrasal verb in yet another situation, to publish or release something officially. This is common in media, business, and official communications. Let me give you examples. First example is, the magazine puts out a new issue every month. Here, put out means to publish or release the magazine issue to the public. Second example is, the company will put out a press release tomorrow. Here, put out means to publish or officially release the press statement. Third example is, they put out an emergency alert about the storm. Here, put out means to broadcast or release the alert to warn people. And the fourth example, the government put out new safety guidelines yesterday. Here, put out means to publish or officially release the guidelines to the public. Our seventh phrasal verb is put back, and it has two meanings. The first meaning is to return something to its original position. This is essential for organization and putting things where they belong. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, please put the book back on the shelf when you're done reading. Here, put back means to return or place the book to its original location on the shelf. Second example is, I put the milk back in the refrigerator immediately. Here, put back means to return or place the milk back into the fridge where it belongs. Third example is, can you put these files back in alphabetical order? Here, put back means to return or arrange the files to their proper organized sequence. And the fourth example, always put tools back in their designated places after use. Here, put back means to return or place the tools in their assigned storage locations. Now let's use the same phrasal verb in a different situation, to postpone or delay something. This is useful for talking about rescheduling and time management. Let me give you examples. First example is, we had to put back our vacation plans due to the pandemic. Here, put back means to postpone or delay the vacation to a later time. Second example is, the meeting was put back by 1 hour due to technical issues. Here, put back means to postpone or reschedule the meeting to a later time. Third example is, they put back the product launch until next quarter. Here, put back means to postpone or delay the launch to a later period. And the fourth example, the doctor put back my appointment to next week. Here, put back means to postpone or reschedule the appointment to a later date. Our eighth phrasal verb is put in, and it has three meanings. The first meaning is to install or fit something in place. This is common when talking about home improvement, repairs, and installation work. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, we need to put in a new kitchen sink. Here, put in means to install or fit the new sink into the kitchen. Second example is, the electrician will put in new light fixtures tomorrow. Here, put in means to install or mount the light fixtures in their designated locations. Third example is, they're going to put in a swimming pool next summer. Here, put in means to install or construct the pool in their yard. And the fourth example, we should put in better insulation to save energy. Here, put in means to install or add insulation material to the walls. Now let's use the same phrasal verb in a different situation, to submit or present something formally. This is essential for official procedures, applications, and workplace communication. Here are examples. First example is, she put in her resignation letter yesterday. Here, put in means to submit or formally present her resignation to her employer. Second example is, I put in an application for the scholarship program. Here, put in means to submit or present the application to the program administrators. Third example is, he put in a request for vacation time. Here, put in means to submit or formally ask for time off from work. And the fourth example, they put in a complaint about the noise. Here, put in means to submit or file an official complaint with the authorities. Now let's use the same phrasal verb in yet another situation, to add or contribute something. This is useful for talking about effort, support, and additional elements. Let me show you examples. First example is, could you put in a good word for me with the boss? Here, put in means to add or contribute a positive comment or recommendation. Second example is, she always puts in extra effort to help her students. Here, put in means to add or contribute additional work and care. Third example is, can you put in some fresh herbs to improve the flavor? Here, put in means to add or include herbs as an ingredient. And the fourth example, everyone should put in their fair share of work. Here, put in means to contribute or add their portion of effort to the project. Our ninth phrasal verb is put through, and it has two meanings. The first meaning is to connect someone on the phone. This is essential for phone conversations and professional communication. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, can you put me through to the customer service department? Here, put through means to connect or transfer the call to the customer service department. Second example is, hold on, I'll put you through to the manager right away. Here, put through means to connect or transfer the call to the manager. Third example is, the receptionist put the caller through to the sales team. Here, put through means the receptionist connected or transferred the call to the sales team. And the fourth example, could you put me through to extension 205, please? Here, put through means to connect or transfer the call to that specific extension number. Now let's use the same phrasal verb in a different situation, to cause someone to experience something difficult or challenging. This is useful for describing tough experiences or training. Here are examples. First example is, the company put us through a lot of training before we started. Here, put through means to make us experience or undergo extensive training. Second example is, I don't want to put you through any trouble. Here, put through means to cause you to experience or endure difficulties or problems. Third example is, the coach put the team through intense practice sessions. Here, put through means to make the team experience or endure challenging training. And the fourth example, moving to a new country, put them through many cultural adjustments. Here, put through means the move caused them to experience or undergo difficult changes. Our 10th phrasal verb is put up with, which means to tolerate or endure something unpleasant. This phrase is incredibly useful for expressing patience or frustration in daily life. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, I have to put up with noisy neighbors every night. Here, put up with means to tolerate or endure the annoying noise from neighbors. Second example is, have you put up with such a long commute to work? Here, put up with means to tolerate or endure the lengthy daily travel to work. Third example is, she won't put up with disrespectful behavior in her classroom. Here, put up with means she refuses to tolerate or accept rude behavior from students. And the fourth example, I can't put up with this slow internet connection anymore. Here, put up with means to tolerate or endure the poor internet speed, but the speaker has reached their limit. Our 11th phrasal verb is put aside, and it has 3 meanings. The first meaning is to save something for later use. This is essential for discussing planning and resource management. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, I put aside money every month for my vacation. Here, put aside means to save or reserve money for a future vacation. Second example is, she puts aside some of her salary for retirement. Here, put aside means to save or set apart part of her income for when she stops working. Third example is, let's put aside some food for tomorrow's lunch. Here, put aside means to save or reserve some food for the next day. And the fourth example, he puts aside time every weekend for reading. Here, put aside means to allocate or reserve specific time for his reading hobby. Now, let's use the same phrasal verb in a different situation to ignore differences or problems temporarily. This is useful for conflict resolution and cooperation. Here are examples. First example is, let's put aside our differences and work together. Here, put aside means to ignore or temporarily overlook our disagreements to focus on cooperation. Second example is, they put aside their personal disagreements to help during the crisis. Here, put aside means they ignored or temporarily overlooked their conflicts to focus on helping. Third example is, can we put aside politics and focus on the facts? Here, put aside means to ignore or temporarily overlook political differences to concentrate on facts. And the fourth example, the teams put aside their rivalry to support the charity event. Here, put aside means they ignored or temporarily overlooked their competition to work together. Now let's use the same phrasal verb in yet another situation, to allocate or set apart time for something specific. This is important for time management and scheduling. Let me show you examples. First example is, I need to put aside some time to study for the exam. Here, put aside means to allocate or reserve specific time for studying. Second example is, can you put aside an hour tomorrow for our meeting? Here, put aside means to allocate or reserve an hour in your schedule for the meeting. Third example is, parents should put aside quality time for their children every day. Here, put aside means to allocate or dedicate specific time for spending with their children. And the fourth example, she puts aside Friday evenings for her hobby. Here, put aside means to allocate or reserve Friday evenings specifically for her personal interest. Our 12th phrasal verb is put forward, which means to propose an idea or to suggest something for consideration. Let's see how this works in different situations. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, the committee put forward several new proposals. Here, put forward means to propose or suggest new ideas for consideration. Second example is, can I put forward a different solution to this problem? Here, put forward means to propose or suggest an alternative idea for solving the problem. Third example is, she put forward her name for the leadership position. Here, put forward means to propose or nominate herself as a candidate for the position. And the fourth example, the teacher asked students to put forward their ideas for the school project. Here, put forward means to propose or suggest their creative ideas for the project. Our 13th phrasal verb is put across, which means to communicate an idea clearly or to make someone understand your point. Look at how you can use this in everyday conversations. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, I'm having trouble putting my ideas across to the team. Here, put across means to communicate or express ideas clearly so others understand them. Second example is, he really knows how to put his point across effectively. Here, put across means to communicate or express his viewpoint in a way that others understand. Third example is, let me put this across in simpler terms. Here, put across means to communicate or explain the information in an easier way to understand. And the fourth example, the presenter put across complex information in an easy-to-understand way. Here, put across means to communicate or convey complicated information clearly. Our 14th phrasal verb is put together, which means to assemble something or to organize and combine different parts. This is incredibly useful for describing various activities. Let's learn with some examples. First example is, we need to put together a presentation for Monday. Here, put together means to create or assemble the presentation by combining different slides and information. Second example is, can you help me put this furniture together? Here, put together means to assemble or build the furniture by connecting its parts according to instructions. Third example is, she put together an amazing surprise party. Here, put together means to organize and arrange all the elements needed for the party. Fourth example is, the chef put together a delicious meal using only leftovers. Here, put together means to create or prepare a meal by combining leftover ingredients. And the fifth example, they put together a strong team for the project. Here, put together means to assemble or form a team by selecting people with different skills. Those are 14 useful phrasal verbs with put that you can use in daily conversations. Practice using them to sound more natural and fluent in English. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more English tips. See you next time.